Okay, so in the last few months, there has been a number of things I have wanted to review and make videos on, but unfortunately, it's been a very busy year for me, and I have to pick my battles. I just didn't have time to get to everything I wanted to get to, so I'm trying something new. I'm gonna catch up in one big video where I talk about all of it. So get yourself a nice drink, sit back, make sure you're cozy. I'm taking you on a ride. I'm gonna review 7 movies and shows that I've seen in the past few months and that I haven't had the opportunity to talk about yet. These are in no particular order. We're just gonna review things one by one. Okay? Cool. Let's go. Number 1. Thunderbolts. So to kick things off, let's talk about yet another Marvel movie. And, holy shit, this one was actually good.
Okay, that was really good.
So yes, I saw Thunderbolts when it came out in theaters, and I didn't really know what to expect. I've kind of checked out on the MCU recently, as I've made abundantly clear in several videos over the last couple of years. I don't think I need to explain why. We all know the MCU has gotten pretty lame. Phase 5 in particular has been a fucking snooze fest. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania was an absolute embarrassment. Don't even get me started on Secret Invasion. Agatha All Along was okay until the terrible finale. What If is lame. I watched the Marvels at home and never finished it because it's that boring. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was unsurprisingly pretty sick because, you know, James Gunn. Loki fucking slaps. Deadpool and Wolverine was an entertaining cinema experience, but as a movie, I don't know. I know I watched all of Captain America Brave New World, but I'm also fairly convinced I was asleep the whole time. Echo was forgettable as shit, and I haven't seen Ironheart. So long story super mega fucking short, out of about 14 projects in the span of 2 years, we end up with one good movie, one good show, and Thunderbolts. A very surprising surprise. I didn't have any hopes for this movie. I was pretty convinced it was gonna suck despite having a lot of people I like in it. My loss of faith in the MCU really prevented me from giving this movie a real chance, and good news, the movie proved me wrong. Thunderbolts is a blast. I really didn't expect to like this movie so much. It's a very intimate story about mental health that deals with a group of characters that have been afterthoughts in the MCU despite canonically still being around, like characters that largely felt incomplete. And the movie sort of acknowledges that by portraying them as afterthoughts in universe. They're kind of set aside and not very respected. We're being told that people consider them to be losers. Their lives suck and they find themselves having to work together to try and do something good. Yelena Belova is a character I always liked, but that felt very directionless in the MCU. She was just kinda there, but this movie really focuses in on her psyche, and I think it succeeds at making her one of the most interesting characters currently in the MCU. It kinda reframes her as this deeply broken person who is depressed and lonely and feels like nothing in her life matters, so much so that dying starts to feel like an option to her. She's desperate to feel like she's doing something important, that she matters when it comes to the greater good, because a life of being a covert assassin has left her with nothing but regret and shame, especially when she reflects on the hero her sister Natasha became before dying to save the universe. We're introduced to Bob.
I'm Bob.
Bob!
AKA the Sentry, who becomes the sort of antagonist of the movie. Some people complain about how the film is resolved by the power of friendship. I mean, personally, I call it the movie being consistent with its themes, especially given the fact that the Sentry is very much established as being a metahuman so powerful that you just cannot take him in a fight. He's basically Superman, but like very mentally ill. Clearly, they weren't gonna punch their way out of this one. And And I don't know, I like that this movie is about people being crushed by their loneliness, finding closure by choosing to be here for one another. This story has some very emotional moments that manage to perfectly coexist with the otherwise very comedic tone of the film. They balance it very well. It's funny, the emotional beats really worked for me, and the performances are pretty amazing. It genuinely made me excited to see these characters again and see how they're going to contribute to the future of the MCU. They are currently the only MCU characters I'm actually invested in. I always loved Bucky, and I've always wanted him to have a larger role in the MCU. Looks like that's gonna be the case now. Red Guardian cracks me up, and I love him as the unhinged father figure to this group of idiots. I didn't give a fuck about US Agent until this movie, and Ghost doesn't contribute much to this story, to be completely honest, but I'm open to her being more fleshed out in the future. Despite being adored by fans and critics alike, Thunderbolts unfortunately did not perform well at the box office and lost the studio a lot of money, which is an insane thing to think about given that at the time of recording this video, it is in the top 10 highest grossing movies of the year, and yet it was a financial flop. That scares me a little bit because studio execs always follow the money trail, so I'm afraid they might not be open to making more movies like this in the future, but I am keeping a little bit of hope, just a little bit, that after so many flops that were despised by audiences and critics, they're at least going to hear an echo of the positive reception and see a trajectory there. Kevin Feige just did an interview where he admitted flat out that the MCU post-Endgame was all about quantity and not at all about quality. So, you know, I am all for the MCU getting back to a story that actually makes you invested in the characters and their path moving forward over just trying to get people to cheer with cameos. If we can find a way to keep that on track, maybe I'll be able to get on the train again. We'll see what Fantastic Four does.
Say that again?
Alright, let's move on. Number 2. Daredevil Born Again. Okay, bit of context here. So, to recap, 10 years ago at the time of making this video, God I'm old, Netflix released an adaptation of Marvel's Daredevil, riding the wave of the new age of superhero series kickstarted in 2012 by the CW and what ended up becoming the Arrowverse. Netflix took their crack at it with the Defenders saga, which started in 2015 with Daredevil. The show was adored all around the world and largely considered one of the best comic book adaptations of the time, and it feels like we just couldn't get enough of Matt, Karen, Foggy, and Kingpin, especially later on with the addition of the Punisher. The show was dark and gritty, it had fantastic, very memorable action scenes. They got the vibe right, the characters right, and a story that was engaging and that made people ecstatic. Even people who were not fans of comic book movies and television series really got into Daredevil because it was just that good. Thing is, after 3 successful and critically acclaimed seasons, Netflix canceled Daredevil along with all of its spin-off series in the aftermath of a disagreement with Disney and Marvel over the rights of the characters. It's a very long story, but the very short version of it is basically the show was cancelled because of Disney developing the Disney Plus streaming platform and wanting to get the rights to their characters back to make their own new content with them. So it was axed in November 2018. But after 4 long years of silence that made everybody believe this shit was completely dead, Disney finally announced Daredevil Born Again, a reboot of Daredevil for Disney Plus that would see the return of Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock and Vincent D'Onofrio as Wilson Fisk. People rejoiced, and that reboot finally came out in 2025, 7 years after the original series was cancelled. Daredevil Born Again was weird. I can't really say I hated it, because I didn't, but I also can't say I liked it that much. The show has its moments, no questions there, but Daredevil Born Again in its entirety is a very, very disjointed mess that, in large majority, turns out to be quite forgettable. And there's a reason for that. The making of this show was a fucking mess. In case you don't know the story, the show was being made by a team of people who didn't want to follow the trail of the Netflix series, despite inheriting the cast of that show, for some reason they didn't want to continue the Netflix series. So this was going to be a new take on the character, possibly in another universe that would be lighter, cheekier. They talked about wanting to distance themselves from the darkness of the original series, and they said they wanted to explore a more comedic side of Matt Murdock. Probably a version of him more attuned to his appearance in the She-Hulk series or his cameo in Spider-Man No Way Home. Bottom line is, it was going to be a completely different show with no connection to the events of the original series, despite having the same actors in the same roles. So yeah, basically they were just doing everything people didn't want. The season was initially supposed to have 18 episodes, and they started production in early 2023, around March. But after only a couple of months, in June, the production was halted by the writer's strike, the big WGA strike from 2023. And during that time, Marvel Studios took a deeper look at what had been shot, and they decided that this show needed a complete and total creative overhaul. I guess they really didn't like what they saw, and they decided to make significant changes to the series, despite having already completed 6 episodes. So the showrunners were fired, and Marvel grabbed the showrunner of the Punisher Netflix series and the directors of the Loki series and tasked them with revamping the show, letting them make it R-rated and asking for a focus on quality over quantity, reducing the episode count from 18 to only 9. So the new team assembled and did just that. They rewrote the show as a darker, more adult version, and they made the ultimate decision to revamp the series as a direct continuation to the Netflix series, picking up a few years after the events of the 3rd season. The thing is, because they had already shot a number of episodes, some of them had to be used. Some of that stuff was scrapped, but globally, the episodes were reworked and in some cases were left mostly intact, with some rewrites then coming in to create some connective tissue between those already shot episodes and the new stuff with the new writers. And after a very long process of stitching everything together, the show went back into production in January of 2024, so 6 or 7 months after being initially shut down, and new episodes were shot to be stitched to the old ones. So, basically, Daredevil Born Again is sort of a Frankenstein collage that is essentially 2 completely different Daredevil series kind of forced into one. If I understand correctly, because this shit is super convoluted, but the first episode of the season is part of the new version by the new team. The 6 episodes that follow are essentially repurposed, already shot episodes from the initial version of the show that was scrapped, sort of enhanced with some rewrites and reshoots, mostly involving the inclusion of the Punisher and the stuff around him. And then the last 2 episodes are back to the new version by the new writers. Those are completely new. Literally, it is 2 completely different Daredevil shows with 2 completely different visions and intentions forcefully smashed into one. And the story is full of contrived stretches and leaps to try and make the whole thing into one cohesive story. So the show is a fucking mess, okay? That's what I'm getting at here. Tonally speaking, it is all over the place. It's like the show is trying to be both a lighter and a darker version of the Netflix series. At the same time, the writing is incredibly inconsistent, the characters are incredibly inconsistent, which makes sense because they're written for 2 different shows and stories. The character of Matt Murdock, while familiar because he's still played by Charlie Cox, just feels weird, man. He is so strange in this show. I didn't know how to feel about him. A lot of what he does and how he goes about things feels very out of character, and he really doesn't feel like the same person we knew in the other show, but I don't know. There's a whole villain that is built up for a big chunk of the season and that is then disposed of in the most anticlimactic way so that we can move on to a completely new and different plot for the last 2 episodes. Like, this thing is so fucking disjointed and it's very hard not to notice. But like I said, the show has its moments. And when the show is being good, It's really solid. Unsurprisingly, the parts of the show that are handled by the new writers are significantly stronger, and unsurprisingly, the Punisher's return is fucking phenomenal. His first scene where him and Matt have a conversation about the ethics of justice is just so fucking good. I rewatched it a couple of times because that chemistry between these two just never goes away.
They say his name. It's not about him. It's not about him. Ah, for Christ's sake, say his name! Say his name, you coward! Say his name! It's not about him! You hate yourself. He's eating you up because you ain't done a goddamn thing about it! God damn it,
If you didn't know, John Bernthal, who plays the Punisher, initially refused to return for Born Again before the big shuffle behind the scenes. He really did not like wherever that version of the show was going, and he thought having Frank Castle there made absolutely no sense, so he said no. But once the new writers took over, and obviously with the new showrunner being the showrunner who worked with John on the Punisher series, and when he saw them trying to salvage the show's original tone and work out a story more consistent with the Netflix series, he accepted to return and film scenes for new episodes and for the old ones that were being reimagined. And he's just as good as he's always been. Everything around the Punisher and the storyline around the corrupt police officers that treat him like a god is very compelling. We don't get the time to fully unpack it the way that I would have wanted because the season is so fucking disjointed and like the focus is all over the place. But I think they're going somewhere interesting with that in the future, so I'm very excited. Also, the show does bring back Foggy and Karen because fans were really upset that they had been left out of the original version of the reboot, so they brought them back. Only for them to be disposed of immediately, though. Everybody was so excited about them coming back, but Foggy dies in the first 7 minutes of the first episode, and Karen just ups and leaves the show until the finale, appearing in a grand total of 2 episodes plus one little cameo scene in episode 2. And, oh, Kingpin is here. That's it. I'm guessing he's gonna be a bit more active in the next season, but here, aside from a couple of cool scenes where you get to see him being brutal, Wilson Fisk doesn't do much of anything. He becomes the mayor of New York and he has to lay low, and he also spends a lot of time doing couples therapy with Vanessa. Okay.
Is it for the best for you, Vanessa?
I think in some ways
We don't care. Damn, we don't fucking care. Shit!
And there's just a bunch of other stuff that is kinda meh. Daredevil is a series that is very well known for its incredibly impressive practical fight scenes. But in this version, there are some action sequences where they opted to make Daredevil CGI. The first big action set piece of the show is full of it, and it's very rubbery and distracting. I really didn't like that choice, but when we're doing some good old hand-to-hand combat, it's fun. I think the show has yet to give us an action scene that is as epic and memorable as what the Netflix series gave us. If you've never seen the show, just go on YouTube and watch the hallway fight scene, the staircase fight scene, or my favorite, the prison fight scene. All of those have been made in one take, and it is so fucking impressive. So yeah, this new series doesn't really get to that height, but so far they've been entertaining enough. There's an entire episode that takes place inside of a bank. It's kind of a filler storyline that has absolutely nothing to do with the rest of the show. It's just kind of thrown in there. It's like, hey, here's a random adventure where Matt Murdock conveniently finds himself in the middle of a bank robbery with Miss Marvel's dad. And you can just tell this was part of the initial show and they just kept that episode. The episode is fine, but it just feels very out of place here. And apparently Charlie Cox fucking hated that episode and tried really hard to push against it being made. Anyways, you get it. The behind the scenes of this series was a fucking shit show, and it very much reflects in the final product. Daredevil Born Again is a very weird clusterfuck of ideas that struggles to stand on its own terms. The good news, though, is that the upcoming second season is entirely being made by the new writers, and I have a feeling it's gonna be much better since that season will be driven by one cohesive vision. So I'm still excited for what's to come. Plus, that second season has already wrapped shooting, so we won't have to wait like 7 years for it to come out. It's likely gonna release early next year, and good! I love Charlie Cox's Daredevil way too much. I genuinely believe he is one of the greatest casting choices of all time. He is so perfect in this role. So if I can have more of him in a story that is at least decent, I'm on board. Okay, before we continue, I just want to take a quick moment to thank today's sponsor. Oh yeah, guess who's back better than ever? The Galaxy's favorite everyday earbuds classic model, remixed with some good old active noise cancellation. It's kind of the one thing they were missing, but you know Raycon, they don't play around, so they did the thing. And adding to that their 8 hours of playtime and pretty impressive 32-hour battery life. Ooh, let me just tell you, going on a walk or on a run while listening to that Cat Slater song on repeat is hitting just right, my guy. And I have really small ears, which usually makes earbuds a nightmare to wear for me because they always fall out. People with small ears know what I'm talking about. But Raycon is ahead of the curve. They thought about that too because their earbuds have gel tips with adjustable sizes to make sure they fit your ears perfectly while always being comfortable. And honestly, I get sick sound, sick features, and it's comfortable. I couldn't ask for anything more. But there's so much more. Look at this. Look at it. Yeah, I got myself a capsule case, my guy, because I travel a lot and I need to make sure my earbuds are safe, homie. But look at it. My case has more style than your favorite celebrity at Fashion Week, bro. This one's called a water case, but there is a whole selection of different ones you can choose from. And you guys are in luck because Raycon is hooking you up, amigos. Right now, go to buyraycon.com/Space Ninja and get 20% off the fan favorite earbuds classic. Yes, you too can walk around with mad style while listening to your favorite podcast. 20% off. That's buyraycon.com/Space Ninja. Thank you so much to Raycon for sponsoring this video. You guys are the best. And let's get back to the show. Number 3. F1 the movie. So after a Gran Turismo movie in 2023 that got the attention of virtually nobody, 2025 Hollywood decided to try again with F1, this time directed by Joseph Kosinski, who gave us Tron Legacy and Top Gun Maverick. I frankly did not know what to expect from this movie. I didn't really have expectations. I just went in hoping to be, at best, entertained. And, it was entertaining. F1 is a very simple movie where you go in for the spectacle. There's nothing really extravagant to look for here aside from the visual spectacle of those racing scenes. It tells the story of a retired F1 racer, played by Brad Pitt, who is brought out of retirement by his old teammate to join his team and win a tournament. In terms of narrative, it's very much just your average sports movie. The characters, while not uninteresting by any means, are all a bit underwritten. There could have been more space there to flesh them out beyond the little exposition dumps here and there. And sure, the plot relies on a number of genre cliches to function. Like, the movie really isn't that deep, but it's also not really trying to be. Like I said, plot-wise, there's nothing really new here. This is kind of your run-of-the-mill sports movie. Everything kind of plays out exactly the way you'd expect it to. That can be boring to some people, and for me, I don't mind as long as the movie can still keep me engaged, which it succeeds at doing. Brad Pitt is sharing the screen with co-star Damson Idris, who I wasn't too familiar with before because I haven't had the opportunity to sit down and watch Snowfall, but god damn, this guy is so charismatic, it's fucking ridiculous. And as far as racing movies go, I think this is the one I've enjoyed the most recently. The plot is really good at establishing the stakes of each race and at depicting the strategies that are implemented in real time, which not only makes the races impressive to look at because they're dynamic and impeccably well directed, but also because they're engaging. I went into this movie not giving a single fuck about racing, but the way the races in the movie are playing out made it that I found myself being at the edge of my seat waiting for the guys to make their next move. You're never entirely sure how a race is going to end and why it's going to end that way. So each one feels like its own unique little experience, and the movie trusts you to pick up on the functioning of it as it goes, so it doesn't have to hold your hand through every race, and it works really well. Again, I don't know anything about F1, and I'm assuming that since this is a Hollywood film designed for an audience that likely doesn't know much about F1 either, it's probably not the most accurate representation of how races and strategies actually go down, but the movie is really good at making you feel immersed in the sport, and I think that's what it needs. Now, there's been some controversy surrounding the movie, mainly due to two things. One being Brad Pitt. His history of being an abusive asshole to his wife and kids is starting to catch up to him very slowly, and deservedly so. He sounds like an absolute maniac. And secondary to that, there is a whole controversy around actress Simone Ashley being cut out of the movie. She apparently shot for months, and her character had a pretty big role in the story. I think she was meant to be Damson Idris's love interest, so a pretty significant presence in the movie overall, but if you've seen the movie, Simone Ashley does appear in it in one shot. There's just one little shot of her waving at a camera before a race, and that is it. And it's been confirmed that it wasn't just a one-shot cameo. She had an entire character and storyline in this movie that was completely erased, and people lost their fucking minds. And I just gotta say, I don't understand why. Not because I'm like, we don't give a fuck about Simone Ashley. I love Simone Ashley. She's great, and I'm always excited to see her in things. But it's just because that's something that is very common. Like, characters being entirely cut out of movies, it happens way more than you would think. And yes, it also happened on a lot of very popular movies. For example, did you know Paul Rudd played a character in Bridesmaids that had a full-on romantic storyline with Kristen Wiig? Did you know Sterling K. Brown had a prominent role in Split? Tobey Maguire shot scenes for Life of Pi and was subsequently removed from the film. And in bigger cases, there was a whole controversy a few years ago over the movie Yesterday, which heavily featured Ana de Armas in trailers. She was just coming off of Blade Runner 2049 and was about to appear in the highly anticipated Knives Out, so there was a lot of buzz around Ana de Armas at the time, and people got hyped for the movie due to her presence in the trailers. And yet, Ana de Armas is nowhere to be seen in Yesterday because she was entirely cut out of the movie. This instance actually led to a lawsuit accusing Universal of misleading advertisement, claiming the studio used the popularity of Ana de Armas to market a movie she doesn't even appear in. And, very, very, very famously, Shailene Woodley was cast as Mary Jane Watson in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. There are even set photos of her in full costume with the red hair, but in post-production, the director found her presence took away from Peter's romance with Gwen, so every single scene involving MJ was removed from the movie and she doesn't appear in it at all. I could go on, by the way, like, this isn't anything new. This happens all the time. Angela Bassett was cut out of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Rick Mayall was entirely cut out of Harry Potter. Harrison Ford was cut out of E.T. Uma Thurman was cut out of Savages. I mean, hell, we just found out a couple weeks ago that John Malkovich played a character in the MCU that debuted in the new Fantastic Four movie. You can even see him in the trailers. But it was recently announced prior to the movie's release that he was cut out of Fantastic Four. This is fucking John Malkovich. This happens all the time. Movies always have to cut certain things for time or for coherence, which often leads to entire storylines being erased and, at times, with them, entire characters disappearing from the film. So I'm not sure why it made so much noise at this time, like why it was such a huge controversy. But regardless, I do love Simone Ashley, and I would have loved to see her character in this movie. Hashtag release the Simone Ashley cut. Anyway, all in all, is F1 good? Yes. Is F1 great? I don't know. I thoroughly enjoyed watching it, and for the theater experience, it really slaps. I loved watching those races on the big screen. Is this a movie I'm ever gonna watch again? I don't think so. Probably not. I mean, unless we get the Simone Ashley cut. Okay, next. Number 4. The Last of Us. Season 2. Alright, I'm very late to this one. Nobody's talking about this shit anymore. But I've been wanting to review this since it came out. I just didn't have the time to make a full video about it, so this is my chance. I really loved season 1 of The Last of Us. I thought it was really well made. It wasn't perfect, but I liked it enough that it made my top 10 video that year. So you can imagine, I was very much looking forward to season 2. I really wanted to like season 2 because I love the game. It's always been a divisive story, but I fucking love it. I love what it's trying to do. I love how daring it is. It's a story that takes a lot of risks and goes places that a lot of writers would never have the balls to go to with their protagonists. It's ballsy, and I think even if the story didn't land for you, The Last of Us Part 2 deserves a lot of respect. And given how Season 1 was adapted to television, that is, with a lot of respect, I assumed Season 2 would get a similar treatment, and it was easy to be excited for it. I was very wrong, though. I already talked about it a bunch on Instagram, which, by the way, hey, follow me on Instagram. We have a lot of fun over there. But The Last of Us Season 2 is not very good. I would even go as far as to say that it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Aside from 2 episodes that have very strong moments, I unfortunately think we spent 7 weeks watching this show completely destroy its momentum and all of the goodwill it built with its first season. I felt so disappointed to see myself slowly check out from the show with every new episode, despite what I believed was a pretty strong start to the season. But a lot of narrative changes and departures from the game, as well as some incomprehensible pacing choices, completely destroy the story of the source material. Not that anybody cares, but spoilers ahead. Now, to address the immediate elephant in the room, I think the show has an Ellie problem. And before some of you start jumping off your seats waiting for me to roast, this isn't a Bella Ramsey thing. They're not the issue here, despite what some people love to pretend. Bella Ramsey is not a bad actor. You guys are just full of bad faith, and a lot of you are just mad Ellie in the show doesn't look like Ellie in the game. Boo-hoo, cry me a river, I don't fucking care. Everything that was written for the show, she brought to life incredibly well. They did their best with what they were given. The problem is, what was written for the show is really bad. The first issue I have with Ellie this season is that they make her way too much of an asshole from the get-go, like before Joel dies. The whole thing with Joel dying is that when he is killed in front of Ellie, a part of Ellie dies with him. The whole story of The Last of Us Part 2 is largely about how grief and the desire for vengeance can corrupt the mind of a good person. When Joel dies, Ellie is consumed by this feeling of hatred that turns her into a monstrous person, and she gets really mean. Now, the thing is, in the show, Ellie is already super fucking mean. She is such a cruel dickhead to everyone around her all the time. Every scene she's in, she's going sicko mode on somebody. You don't really get any scenes where she's being nice to someone. I don't know if you don't get any scenes where she's being nice to someone. She's always being mean. So that creates 2 problems. One, her conflict with Joel doesn't hit as much as it did in the game, showing the anger she has towards him, because in the show, she doesn't act any differently towards Joel than she does towards literally everyone else, aside maybe from Dina. She's a verbally abusive asshole to everyone for no reason, so for all I care, this is just how she is. And 2, once Joel dies, the shift in Ellie's personality doesn't have much weight, because again, she was already mean. And the part that annoys me is that this mean side of Ellie is not used right in the story. Because not only is she already an incredibly mean asshole to everyone from the jump, when the time comes for her to be this cruel mind corrupted by vengeance, the writers don't really have the guts to go there. See, The Last of Us Part 2, the game, sees Ellie essentially becoming Joel. Ellie in the game turns into fucking John Wick. She murders people brutally, completely consumed by vengeance. She tracks down the people who were there when Joel was taken from her, and she exterminates them. She kills the ever-living fuck out of them, and she kills anyone that is in her way. And she doesn't kill like that because she has to. No, she does it because she wants to. She doesn't have to kill them, but she does it anyway because this isn't about doing the right thing. It's not even about justice, it's just revenge. She wants to satisfy the rage and the pain she felt when Abby killed Joel, and she doesn't know how to let go of that desire. She turns into a monster by choice, and in her head, it cannot end until Abby is dead, and she needs to be the one to kill her. She wants to find these people, she wants to hurt them, she wants to kill them herself.
If those fuckers who killed Joel got taken out by some random infected, then they'd still be dead, Ellie. I'm not sure that's justice.
The show, however, takes a completely different approach that I found to be a giant disservice to the story's core theme. I think the writers got nervous as to how audiences would react to Ellie becoming like she is in the game, so they just kinda chickened out of it. Ellie doesn't kill anyone in the show, and on the couple occasions that she does, she kills them accidentally. Now, look, I fucking adore Ellie in the game. She is such an interesting character. But the TV version, I don't know, man. She's just not a very compelling protagonist. The way they turn her into a petulant rebel child who is rude to everyone while taking away her actual edge and her willingness to go through with the horrible actions this entire story is supposed to be about, it just doesn't do anything good for her narratively. Between the first and the second game, there is a big difference in Ellie's character, which makes sense. In the first game, she's 14 years old. In the second, she's 19, going on 20. You can tell she's grown, she's matured. She's still impulsive and bratty and flawed and all that stuff, but she doesn't feel like the little girl from the first game. In the show, though, that change isn't there. Ellie still feels like the immature 14-year-old girl she was in the first season. She's just as childish, if not more at times, and there isn't any evolution to her character. And when I was watching week to week, it became very clear very quickly that I just don't think this version of Ellie can really carry the show. This is a revenge story where the main character doing the revenging doesn't actually go through with it unless it is on accident or by reflex. She never kills someone by choice. The show refuses to let her make that choice purely out of a selfish desire for revenge. I really think they might have been afraid of how people would perceive Ellie, but in order for this story to work, especially given where the story goes after that, Ellie needs to be corrupted. She needs to be the fucking boogeyman. But the show doesn't have the balls to take her to the place the game took her. So the whole revenge plot feels kind of half-assed.
Holy shit. I'm gonna be a dad.
Okay, now I know everybody lost their fucking marbles over this line. I don't fucking care about this line. It's stupid as fuck. I don't know why it's there. Whatever. The reason why this scene annoys me is because it diminishes the stakes of the mission here. In the game, when Ellie finds out Dina is pregnant and didn't say anything, she's not excited and goofy about it. They're on a fucking John Wick revenge mission. Their only goal here is to track down people, to murder them. There's only 2 of them against God knows how many people and a bunch of infected in the wild. This is not a place for a pregnant woman to be. So when she finds out, Ellie lashes out at Dina because she is fucking pissed that Dina decided to go on this mass murder spree with her while pregnant.
Can you say something?
Ellie. I think I'm pregnant.
What? What are we supposed to do now?
Nothing. I just need to rest for a second.
Are you fucking kidding? How long have you known?
I was late a few weeks ago.
A few weeks? We could have still turned back.
I didn't know. I wasn't sure, okay? I didn't want to be a burden.
Well, you're a burden now, aren't you?
This scene is important because it reiterates that what they're doing is extremely dangerous. There is a real pressure there. The stakes have just changed. But in the show,
I'm gonna be a dad.
this version of the story consistently diminishes the weight of what they're doing. The show treats their murder mission like it's a cute field trip, and I think that sucks. I know that this show has the creator of the game as co-showrunner, even though he just quit the show and will not be working on season 3, but the show still feels like it fundamentally misunderstands Ellie and why she's such a great character in the game. The way Ellie is written in the show just fucks it all up, and when Joel is not around to carry the show with her, it just feels like everything is falling flat because all of the edge the story is supposed to get through Ellie is gone. Like, in order to change Ellie from the focused and flawed murder machine with grit to a goofy, childish, whiny teen, I just don't buy this version of the character, and none of it is helped by the narrative changes that just suck the life out of the intrigue of the story. One of my favorite things about The Last of Us Part 2, the game that is that when Abby shows up and kills Joel, you have no fucking idea who she is. Joel just finds someone who needs help. He helps Abby get to safety. By the way, in the game, he's with his brother Tommy, not with Dina. And after getting her to safety, he formally introduces himself to her and her group, and he's weirded out by their reaction.
I'm Mel, by the way.
Tommy, this is my brother.
Joe.
Y'all act like you heard of us or something.
Because they have.
Joel, get up. Joel, fucking get up. Please stop. Please don't shoot. Joel, please get up.
When Joel dies, he doesn't know who Abby is and why she attacked him. And you, as the player, do not find out either until much later. Narratively, it's just so much more compelling because you get to uncover that as the story goes. But in the show, they decided to change that by making Abby endlessly monologue to Joel about who she is, where she comes from, how she feels, why she doesn't like Joel, and why she wants revenge, and it just sucks the life out of the intrigue. And even for the audience, the opening scene of the season is Abby and her Suicide Squad just announcing who they are and how they're gonna go murder Joel, and then for some reason they keep talking about Joel being handsome, which, why is that there? That opening scene does not exist in the game. They just added that for no reason, so that you can know from the very first second everything that's going on here. At every turn, this season systematically chooses to dumb down the story of the game. And between that and the dumbing down of Ellie's character and everything that made her compelling in the game, I think the way they went about it made it that they ensured that an overwhelming majority of people would completely lose interest in the show after Joel's death. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. After the finale aired, it was reported that the show's viewership went down 55% over the course of the season compared to season 1 numbers, and the sharpest drop in viewership happened from episode 3 to episode 4, which means after Joel's death in episode 2, people continued watching episode 3 to see what would happen and got immediately disengaged and just stopped watching in episode 4. Meaning, over half of the people who watched season 1 dropped the show at some point during season 2. And a lot of people are now talking about not being interested in season 3. And if I'm being really honest here, I don't know if I'm gonna watch season 3. I love Caitlin Dever as Abby. I've never seen a project with Caitlin Dever where her performance didn't significantly stand out. She's just that good. But I've just lost interest in this series. I really dragged myself through the mud to finish season 2, so yeah, sorry, I might have to skip this one. Alright, I've been yapping about this for long enough. I really needed to get this out of my system. Let's move on. Number 5. Jurassic World Rebirth. This movie exists. That's it. Number 6. Materialists. So in a twist that definitely took me by surprise, the most anticipated rom-com of the last few years, directed by Celine Song, starring the people who are in absolutely everything all the time, and from the now beloved and trusted studio A24, turned out to be a disappointment people had a very hard time swallowing. I saw it, and I kinda get it. Materialists is a movie about a woman named Lucy, played by Dakota Johnson, a matchmaker living in New York City who is really good at her job. So far, 9 couples she has matched herself have gotten married, which makes her one of the best matchmakers in her company. But despite being so good at helping people find love, Lucy herself hasn't found her forever. We're told Lucy hasn't dated anyone in years, and she's very emotionally disconnected when it comes to love. As a matchmaker, she comes to perceive love and relationship success as calculus. It's math. It's kind of just putting blocks in holes because people are superficial and are more into checking items off a list of criteria when looking for a potential partner rather than just seeking a genuine connection and vulnerability. In her work, there is a very clear script. Men want women to be young and hot, and women want men who are tall and rich. Lucy herself says early in the movie that she intends to marry the next man she dates, and when asked what she would look for in a man she marries, she answers that her one and only criteria is that he needs to be incredibly rich. That's all she wants. We find out she was in a 5-year-long relationship with a guy named John, played by Chris Evans, who she broke up with on the day of their 5th anniversary because of a disagreement surrounding money that made her realize she cannot be in a relationship with someone who doesn't have a lot of money, because she will always resent them for it. Her wish is the universe's command though, because while attending the wedding of a couple she matched together, Lucy meets the brother of the groom, a man named Harry, played by Pedro Pascal. Harry is kind, charming, intelligent, good-looking, he's over 6 feet tall, and most of all, Harry is rich as fuck, my guy. He's in private equity, he's loaded, he lives in a $12 million penthouse in Manhattan. Like, basically, on paper, he's a man that Lucy deems perfect, that according to her math, makes him what she refers to as a unicorn, a man that every woman would dream of. At first, she tries to convince him to hire her so she can find him a potential future wife, but he refuses and asks her out instead. So they start dating. But at that wedding, Lucy also reconnected with the man she left behind because he wasn't enough for her. John comes back into her life. Interesting premise. Oh, and by the way, spoilers ahead. The first hour of the movie is really strong. Everything is established very well, the dialogue is popping, the characters are charismatic, and the movie introduces a number of themes that announce an interesting exploration of modern relationships and modern dating and how we tend to view that in a modern world. There's a great scene early on where Pedro Pascal and Dakota Johnson are sitting in a restaurant having a conversation about like the meaning of being wanted. Lucy is confused as to why a guy as perfect as Harry is into her. She keeps trying to give him reasons to reject her. She says she's too old. He would be better choosing someone 10 years younger because in 10 years she looked like her now. She says she's too distant, maybe too shallow because she's very aware that she only cares about money. and Harry keeps challenging her claims, essentially saying that he's not interested in her because of those things. He doesn't see her as a set of video game settings. He just wants to know her as a person, beyond all those checklist items, because he values her personality, finds her intelligent, and wants an equal. The scene is very well directed, the dialogue is very well written, and it kind of shows you that Lucy has a difficult time seeing people as people. She sees them as data and tries to predict everything from very surface level traits, but she's unable to compute a person dating for genuine connection. It's like she loses her means. She doesn't know what to do with that. Fascinating theme to attach to her character. There's another interesting scene where the bride of the wedding Lucy attends has a full-on cold feet meltdown before walking down the aisle, and she goes on this whole panicked speech about not knowing what she's doing here and why in a world where she could have become whatever she wanted, she chose to become a bride. Lucy asks her why she wants to marry the man she's about to marry, and the woman gives her the weirdest answer. She says that she is with this man not because of love, but because she loves the way he makes her look in other people's eyes. You know, her man is rich and successful and tall and handsome, and she knows that having bagged a man like that makes other women jealous, namely her sister, whose husband is not as rich and successful and handsome and all those things. And she says that while she never expressed it, she knows that her sister is jealous. The woman then proceeds to break down in tears as she admits that she's with her future husband because it makes her feel like she's winning, as if she's in a sort of silent competition with her sister and other women, and being with this man makes her feel like she's above them, like she's winning this competition. Now, the interesting thing about this scene is that nothing she expresses about why she's marrying the guy has anything to do with the guy or with love. It's all about ego. But Lucy responds to her that what she's hearing is that she loves this man because he makes her feel valuable, and she thinks that's a beautiful reason to marry him. The woman agrees, and the wedding goes on. Immediately, it again reinforces that Lucy's vision of love is broken and way too mathematical, just like in the restaurant scene with Pedro. In the first hour, it seems like the movie is setting a lot of pieces to have Lucy go through a sort of transformative journey about her vision of love, of people, and maybe so that she can learn to humanize people again. It seems. In the second hour, though, the movie starts to fall apart. I don't really know how to explain it very clearly, but about like the halfway mark, there is a very quick succession of events that seemingly come out of nowhere and weirdly shifts the direction of the film. And suddenly, characters lose all sense of consistency and logic. The story loses its focus and doesn't really seem to know what it's trying to say anymore, and then the ending quite literally loses the plot. Like, you just spend the second half of this movie watching the story crumble out of nowhere, and people reacted to that very strongly. It's almost like audiences felt betrayed by this movie, especially when it comes to the main character, Lucy. Dakota Johnson has become quite a divisive actress among audiences. Some people love her, others find that she's just not that good of an actress and her performances are boring. To me, while I don't think Dakota Johnson is a bad actress, she's the same type of actor as like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Ryan Reynolds, Michelle Rodriguez, Zooey Deschanel, or like Jason Statham. You know, those actors who just kind of function in repetition. They essentially play the exact same character in every movie. They never change things up. So much so that due to the fact that they always play their characters the same way, despite having seen them in several movies, their performances kind of blend together and you can never actually remember the names of the characters they played. Dakota Johnson is kind of the same to me. She can be very good, but she is a bit of a one-trick pony. If if you hear she's cast in a movie, you know you're getting the exact same thing you've already gotten 1,000 times before. She plays the same character in every movie with the same personality, the same deadpan demeanor. She'll never change her look. She'll never try something interesting. It's gonna be Dakota Johnson with the Dakota Johnson hair doing the Dakota Johnson thing. But again, I don't think Dakota Johnson is a bad actress. When it works, she can fucking bring it. Like, when she has the writing to back it up, she can really do some work, man. If you haven't seen the movie Cha-Cha Real Smooth, I highly recommend you check it out. It's a very simple but memorable little movie. It's not my favorite. I think I have some issues with it, but I think it might be Dakota Johnson's best role, or at least one of her most interesting roles. Now, don't expect anything wild here. Again, it's Dakota Johnson doing the Dakota Johnson thing. But the way things are framed in this story, she's able to bring a surprising amount of emotion out of this character. And while she's not doing anything particularly different, the type of performance we're used to with her just really works in that context. And I think Materialists is also one of Dakota's strongest roles. Just like in Cha-Cha Real Smooth, while it's still your run-of-the-mill Dakota Johnson performance, she brings a lot of emotion to that character and she carries it all the way through. People found her character boring, and I can understand that. But while there are many of her roles where I'm inclined to say her acting is not doing anything a favor, I kind of disagree when it comes to this movie. In Materialists, the issues with her character are not due to her performance. It's 100% a writing problem. To put it simply, the script of Materialists is fucking weird, dude. I think this movie, especially in its third act, is an attempt at deconstructing the rules of romance films, which I can appreciate. I just don't think it really manages to pull off that deconstruction. This movie seems to think it is much smarter than it actually is. Some critics have said that the movie is anti-romance and leans into this idea that modern love is transactional more so than anything else. A lot of people have said that Materialist is a romantic comedy that isn't romantic or funny, and a lot of people online have been referring to Materialist as broke man propaganda. I personally think that that last one is absolutely stupid, and I think those people didn't really pay attention to the movie, but whatever. It also doesn't help that the movie was very much marketed as a classic romantic comedy, which put people's expectations in a certain place, understandably so. But to me, I think despite an interesting intention in terms of themes and ideas, the movie ends up coming off as contradictory and almost hypocritical. That might be a big word to use, but what I'm trying to say is the ending of this movie left me feeling kind of confused. It feels like in the third act, and more prominently in the last couple of minutes, every theme and arc that was introduced for the story and the characters are very abruptly abandoned in a sort of half-assed effort to achieve a rom-com happy ending that doesn't make any sense with the continuity of the film. Chris Evans' character has a sort of background arc where he slowly realizes that he should stop yearning for the return of a woman who only ever expressed to him that she does not want to be with him, and only ever used him as consolation when she felt lonely. It really feels like him choosing himself is going to be the completion of his arc, but in the last few minutes, he suddenly abandons that newfound clarity and just decides out of nowhere that he wants to be with her anyway. And Lucy gets it even worse. She reiterates at the end of the movie that despite loving John so incredibly much, she says that the only reason she knows she's capable of love is because of how much she loves him. Because yes, there's a whole thing that her character has absolutely nobody in her life, no family, no friends, nothing. She says that despite all of that, after all these years, thinking of being with him still only brings resentment because he's not rich. And she knows that no matter how much she loves him, she will hate him for not being rich and having to settle for a life where he takes her to shitty restaurants and he doesn't want to pay the overpriced parking in New York. So basically, Lucy confirms at the end of the movie that she hasn't changed, that her stance hasn't changed, that she still will value money over everything else and cannot let go of that. She says she hates herself for it, but she is the way she is. Until a few minutes later, and a couple of hours later in the story, when she suddenly changes her mind with no explanation whatsoever and decides to give her relationship with John another chance. Out of absolutely nowhere, with no justification at all, they just get back together, and that's it. Happy ending, they get married. Literally, the movie ends with them getting married. It's so random. And keep in mind, all of that is without mentioning the very bizarre and abrupt way Lucy's story with Pedro Pascal's character ends, only for him to disappear from the movie entirely and never be seen again. Or the very out-of-place subplot involving one of Lucy's clients getting sexually assaulted by a man she matched her with. A sort of strangely handled B-plot that becomes a complete afterthought up until the last few minutes of the movie, where it's brought back up and given the most half-assed resolution that doesn't feel like it went anywhere, because now we'd rather focus on Lucy and John having a cute rom-com happy ending. It's very weird. When I tell you the movie falls apart in its second half, it's like watching a house of cards crumble. The movie kind of vampirizes itself for no reason, abandons everything it seems to tell you it stands for, and then just abruptly cuts to a nonsensical ending that makes everything you saw before have no point. I know, said like that, it really sounds like I hated Materialists, but I didn't. There's aspects of the movie, mainly in the first half, that I liked. I love the themes, the ideas the movie tries to bring to the surface, the performances are mostly very good, and the movie looks gorgeous. There is a lot to like about Materialists, but this movie is fundamentally destroyed by the script that essentially crumbles under the weight of its own themes. It suddenly starts to lose all sense of rhythm, subtlety. The characters begin to talk a lot about everything the movie is about, but never really get to conclude any of this within the narrative. So yeah, I get why Materialist was such a disappointment for people, and despite being of the opinion that the movie does have some redeeming qualities, I also think it was kind of a misfire for Celine Song. It feels like a movie that tries so hard to not be a typical rom-com that it kind of forgets to be a rom-com at all, until the last 3 minutes where it spends its final moments being an entirely different movie. Maybe I'll revisit it at some point and see if anything in the intention of the film lands better with me, but yeah, as of right now, I think this thing deserved better. Next, number 7. Squid Game 3. Yes, friends, just 6 months after the release of the second season over the holidays, the pop culture phenomenon that is Squid Game finally came to a close with its third and final season at the end of June. And nobody's talking about it. I haven't heard a single person talk about Squid Game 3, which is insane. It is one of the most watched TV shows of all time. Its audience is absurdly massive, but it's been complete crickets on this final season, and for good reason. It's not very good. See, I am personally of the opinion that Squid Game should have been a one-season limited series. I thought it was perfect, and I didn't think that story needed to continue. It drives such a great point that feels very accomplished by the end of that season. It doesn't really feel like there is more there to say. But this show was an unexpected super hit that kind of took everyone, Netflix included, by complete surprise. In what felt like the blink of an eye, Squid Game became one of the most watched series in television history. It dominated pop culture in 2021 and 2022. People could not stop thinking about it, and Netflix knew they couldn't just let that go. The thing is, nobody is shy about admitting that Squid Game kept going just because of the money. The creator of the show himself said he didn't have particular plans for a continuation and only accepted to do season 2 when he found out how much money Netflix would be giving him, because apparently he barely made anything from the first season, which is crazy to think about. So, last year, over 3 years after the first season, we got the long-awaited continuation. Squid Game 2, while not terrible, kinda lost me after a while. I found myself being intrigued, sort of, but also bored, depending on what point of the season I was in. That season also didn't get a whole lot of buzz from audiences. The numbers were there. Squid Game is still one of the biggest shows on television. But in terms of cultural impact, again, it's been crickets. We got 2 seasons of this show in 6 months, including the final season, and nobody's talking about it. The 3-year wait between seasons 1 and 2 surely didn't help it stay relevant. Again, it's a huge problem with television right now that like the wait between seasons is literally starting to kill shows. And I think by then the novelty of the concept had kind of run its course. So despite having insane viewership numbers, season 2 barely made any noise, and season 3, well, honestly, if it weren't part of my job to keep track of this shit, I don't think I would have noticed season 3 was out. That's how little noise it made. The thing is, though, it makes sense. Hwang Dong-hyuk, the creator of Squid Game, crafted the story of the first season over the course of a decade. He spent 10 years perfecting that story and giving it all the attention it needed down to the most minute details. But then he had to speed run through seasons 2 and 3 because those 2 seasons were shot at the same time. So he made season 1 in 10 years and then only had a couple of years to make seasons 2 and 3 back to back without a break, and had to come up with a definitive ending for the series. Clearly, it wasn't going to be the same quality. And speaking of which, the ending is bullshit. Spoilers ahead. Season 3 of Squid Game was boring. Aside from a couple of new games that were thrilling in concept, the actual story of the show feels very tired by the end. It feels like it is just trying to repeat the point of the first season, but not as well, not as smart, and not as introspective. I find the ending of the series to be quite anticlimactic, unsatisfying, at times stupid, and when it comes to certain storylines, ultimately pointless. A whole lot of character arcs we waited seasons to see developed amount to nothing. None of the story ends up having much of a point that wasn't already made better in season 1. Long story short, these 2 seasons do not bring anything worthwhile to the table, and it's very hard to ignore. I'm sure that is sort of the point the show makes in the end, that the games cannot be defeated and that they will keep going because there will always be people desperate enough to want to play them, and human nature and human dignity, yada yada yada, there will be no justice. I get it, but my issue with the show is not the ultimate destination, it's kind of the journey becoming a drag and turning into a stupid version of itself. Song Gi-eun, who is a character I really like, ultimately accomplishes nothing by the end of the show. He chooses to die to protect a baby, proving to the game master that people can choose to be good and selfless even after going through the games, that having faith in people can have a point. But the frontman ultimately doesn't care, and it doesn't change anything to the outcome. The island is about to explode, but he's unbothered, and he just says they're gonna move the games to a new location. The end. Meanwhile, the detective guy who spent 3 seasons looking for his brother, the front man, ends up finally finding him, only to yell "Why?" at him, which he does not get any response to, and then he just watches him escape. And that's the end of his story. I'm sorry, that was the biggest waste of time since Bran becoming the three-eyed raven for 6 seasons to then do nothing. None of the characters accomplished anything, and nothing was changed, and nobody learned anything anyway. That's the end of the show. It's pointless, and I'm sorry, having a Cate Blanchett cameo at the end to announce an American spin-off of the show is lame. I don't fucking care. These last 2 seasons have done absolutely nothing to convince me I want more Squid Game. I could not care less, dude. Cate Blanchett is one of my favorite actors of all time, but this did absolutely nothing for me. So yeah, In the end, Squid Game is just another reminder that sometimes stories should just end when they've reached their natural ending point. This wasn't the worst thing ever, there's way worse out there, but for a show as impactful as Squid Game, you know, a show that had the ability to hold pop culture worldwide in such a chokehold, ending with such a shrug from everyone is incredibly noticeable, and I find it quite underwhelming. So, I guess goodbye. And that's that, my group review. Please let me know if you like this format of video. I'm totally open to do this more often whenever, you know, time gets ahead of me and I can't make videos on everything I would like to. I did enjoy making this a lot, so I hope you enjoyed it too. Let me know, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. # release the Simone Ashley cut.